Today I'm going to build out a custom animated loading button. It will be so much fun. I'm going to do all of the coding, but if you want even more, and maybe you want to learn SwiftUI or you want me to debug your code, go ahead and check out rebeloper.com where you can meet me on a one-on-one Zoom call. So what I have done here is just open up a project. So what is a loading button? Well, a loading button is a button that has multiple states. It could be an idle, a loading, a success, an error, whatever. It has multiple states. So let's start off with that. Let me just type it out over here and let's just have a little bit more space. So we are going to have an enum of loading button state. There we go. We are capital B. And those cases are, in my case, I would just go with free idle, loading, and success. Feel free to implement the error handling for yourself. This is, again, just a blueprint, but it's a really great one. Okay, we are going to focus mostly on the animation and the UI stuff. Okay, now, we are going to actually create a view modifier which we are going to add onto a custom view. Now, why is that? Well, that's because the view modifier will require some sort of a frame. Usually, it depends on the width. And we are going to add that onto a clear color so the animation will look smoothly. We will get to the code in just a second. So now we are going to create our view modifier. And let's just call this loading button modifier. There we go. And we can remove the preview. We don't need that just for now. And what will this need? Well, we are going to have a title of type string. And again, feel free, you could just have a view modifier right over here that would just have also a view. I'm just particularly fine with a title for the idle. The loading and the success will be just the same, but for the title, we are going to use the idle state as a text. So title for now. We need to somehow move into this view modifier the state. So at binding var state of type loading button state, okay? And then the action, what should it do? That will be a completion. So action and just a simple completion. Great. So now it's time to talk about what colors do we want our button to be on a particular state. So I'm going to create a computed property right over here, color, of type color. There we go. And we're just going to simply switch through the state. And on the idle, I will just go with blue. On the loading, just go over there. On the loading dot orange, and then on the success I'm just going to go with green. There we go. So I can just use this later on. Okay, on the body we are going to add in a simple button. We don't care about the content. It's just going to be an actual clear color. So we can just remove all of this. And again, that's because of the animation, how it's going to scale properly. So we are going to add a button with an action. I just typed it out. Button with an action and a label. The action would be, of course, the action right over there. Action, two parentheses. And then we are going to add in the label. Now, we are going to have multiple states, so I'm just going to add that onto a Z stack. There we go. And we switch through the states. Come on, state. And if it's idle, I'm just going to go with a simple text of the title. Simple for now. Loading a progress view. And on the success, an image of system named checkmark. Okay. So Let's just stylize this a little bit and add in all of the necessary animations. So on the Z stack, I'm going to make this all bold. So the text, the image will be bold. Progress view will not be affected by the bold. Also, let's add a simple padding. Again, you could just choose here some other padding, but the default one is fine for me. Let's add also the background color. So background, this one will be the color. Okay. And then the foreground style to be white. Basically, that's the foreground color of our text. And because this needs to be a button, I'm just going to have a button style. Let's just remove the button style of dot plain, so it's not going to interfere with the animations and the background color right over here. So now that we remove the button style, we can also add a clip shape. Let's just go with capsule. There we go. And then the content transition. So how should the symbols transition? Dot content transition, symbol effect, symbol, come on, symbol effect, and dot replace. Okay. Finally, we want to add also our animation. So animation, no body over here. So the animation would be our dot. We want to use the one with the value. So animation with the value. Spring, that's fine. Spring, just the default one. Again, you could just add in all of your tweaks for the spring animation, and the value would be the state. So it will animate in a spring manner when the state changes. Great. So now it's time finally to create our loading button. That will be a view. So again, I'm just going to have some more space over here. Let's just have the shell of the view. That will be our loading button. Okay. And of course, it will have a title of type string. It will also have the state binded. So at binding var state of type loading button state, and also the action, let action. It's a completion. Okay. So now comes the magic part. Because of the animation and all of that, we're going to have a color.clear, and we are going to add our modifier with the modifier ViewModifier. I know it's a mouthful, but that's what it is. A loading button modifier, and I believe I mistyped it. It should be a capital B. There we go. Loading button modifier. So now we can search for it. Loading button modifier with the title, state, and action. So we just pass those along. Title, state, and action. There we go. Let's remove the preview. We don't care about that. Okay. So, and I believe we need to add a $sign because we are binding it. Yes. So now we can use our loading button on the view. So first of all, we need to create a state. So at state private var private. Let's just call it state. It will be of type loading button state, and initial value would be the idle. Okay, so now we can just create a loading button with a title of maybe loading. There we go. And then the state, we are just going to bind it, and that will be our state. There we go. And then the action, we are just going to animate it. So animate. And of course, we need this function to be added right over here. So on the function of the animate, we are going to do some work, of course, and we are going to switch through the stages. So first of all, we want to make sure when we tap on the button right over here, we are going to change the state to loading. So first of all, we are going to say state equals dot loading. There we go. And then let's say we do some asynchronous task. So I'm just going to add in a task over here. Let's just see for now, await, try await. Task dot sleep for, and let's just see for, I don't know, 1.5 seconds. Okay. After this is, we are loading, and then we will say state equals dot success. Of course, if you implemented the error handling, you could just go with an error right over here, depending on what you fetched from your server. And then let's just wait for, let me just duplicate this and move this down. Yeah, let's just wait for 1 second, and then just set this back to idle. So state equals dot idle. 1 second is more than enough for the user to know what was going on. In our case, it was a success. And basically, that's it. Now, let's check it out. So here we go. I'm just going to tap on the loading. There we go. Progress view for 1.5 seconds, and then for 1 second, that nice check mark. Really, really amazing. Now, you could also do this without the string as a view, or you can just also add in an error handling, but this is the bare bones of it, and I believe this is really, really nice. And if you want me to do it, go ahead and check out rebeloper.com, where you can meet me on a one-on-one Zoom session, and maybe we can go into more details for the loading button.